I'm tracing a scratch in my therapist's coffee table when the question rips out of me before I can soften it. Why hide my twin? I demand, louder than I mean to, the framed diplomas rattling on the wall. Heat climbs my throat. My late mother's brass coin burns a circle into my palm. As his eyes flick to the door and the lock clicks, I realize I'm not the only one who's been keeping a secret in this room. The sound is small, a soft mechanical thunk beneath the hum of the white noise machine, but my body hears it before my brain does. The air conditioning sighs through the vent above us, carrying that faint mix of coffee, printer toner, and whatever citrus cleaner they use on the waiting room chairs. I stop tracing the scratch and press my fingertips flat into the coffee table, feeling the vibration of my own pulse through the wood. My therapist's pen stills halfway through a word. He doesn't look at the diplomas that just clinked against each other or at the door I know was unlocked when I walked in. He looks at me like I just pulled a fire alarm. "Let's go back for a second," he says, voice sliding into that calm, clinical register he uses when I talk about panic attacks. "Tell me exactly what you mean by twin." The word feels too small now. Twin. I open my fingers just enough to feel the ridged edge of the brass coin, the familiar grooves my mother used to rub with her thumb when she told me stories about the day I was born. My palm is damp. The metal is warm and a little slick, like it's absorbing every anxious thought I've had since I found that envelope. "You heard me," I say, but my voice comes out hoarse. "Another baby. My baby picture isn't just mine." He shifts in his chair, one polished shoe squeaking against the rug. The white noise machine in the corner hisses steadily, meant to muffle the hallway, but I swear I can pick out each muted footstep outside like they're moving closer. I yank the creased envelope out of my bag so fast the flap tears a little. It's soft from being opened and closed too many times this week, the paper gone fuzzy at the edges. I slap it down on the coffee table, harder than I intend. His coffee cup shivers. A dark ring of liquid kisses the inside of the mug. The coin presses deeper into my palm as I pull out the contents one by one, spreading them like a losing hand of cards. "Look," I say, but look at them. Ultrasound prints, grainy and ghost-like. Twins curled in mirrored question marks, the words Baby A and Baby B printed in blocky white letters along the top. A photocopied birth certificate, my parents' names, the date I've celebrated every year, but with a second line in faint type that was never on the official copy I've seen. Something redacted, something crossed out. A hospital bracelet. The plastic yellowed and warped, with my mother's last name and a first name that isn't mine. He leans forward, elbows on his knees, and reaches for the papers with slow, deliberate movements. Like sudden speed might scare me off. I watch the tendons in his hands flex as he lifts the ultrasound, his eyes scanning, going back, reading the same line twice. He doesn't say anything at first, and the silence makes the white noise hiss sound like static in my skull. Then he glances past the papers toward the laptop on the side table, the screen angled just enough that I can see a secure portal open, blue banner, padlock icon, my last name on a tab at the top. He reaches out, nudges the computer away from my line of sight, not quite closing it. My stomach flips. "What is that?" I ask. "Is that my file? Are you checking my diagnosis or my birth certificate?" "It's just our clinical system," he says, but his voice catches on the word just. "I'm verifying some information." Another soft click from somewhere behind me, like a relay switching. I twist in my chair. The office door is closed, the silver handle steady, a tiny red LED glowing near the frame that wasn't lit before. I work in emergency coordination. I spend my days teaching people how not to die in locked rooms when things go wrong. You learn sounds. You learn what a maglock engaging feels like through your feet. "Why did you lock the door?" I ask, and my voice is no longer hoarse. It's sharp enough to cut. His gaze flicks to the small black panel on the wall near his chair, the one I've always assumed was for lights or the thermostat. His fingers had brushed it a second before the thunk. My heart beats hard enough that the coin taps lightly against my bones, a tiny metallic heartbeat inside my fist. He exhales slowly. "I need you to stay seated," he says. "Please?" That's not an answer. "It's part of one," he replies, and for the first time since I started therapy with him, he looks afraid. Not of me, of what I've put on his table. He picks up the birth certificate again, tracing the line where the second entry has been blacked out on the photocopy. "This stamp," he murmurs, almost to himself. "This hospital code, this date." He looks up at me. "How did you get these?" "My grandmother's attic," I say. "Shoebox, under a pile of Christmas cards. She thought they were old bills. Why does it matter?" "Because it does." I can see it in the way his pupils tighten, in the way he glances at the laptop again, calculating. "The copies we have on file for you are different," he says carefully. "If these are authentic, There may have been alterations to official records, potentially without proper authorization. Say it, I snap. You just locked me in here. Say what you think it is. He sets the papers down, folds his hands, and for a moment he looks like one of the judges in those courtroom shows my grandmother watches, about to deliver bad news with kind eyes. In this state, he says, if I'm presented with evidence that suggests a possible crime involving a minor's medical records or unlawful separation of siblings, I am legally required to contact authorities. My ears ring. But I'm not a minor. You were when this happened, he says, and if there's another child involved, their welfare could still be at risk. Another child. My twin stops being a ghost in a grainy ultrasound and becomes a person in the present tense, somewhere under the same sky, breathing the same air that tastes like recycled AC and antiseptic. My fingers go numb. The coin almost slips from my hand. I clamp down, the edge biting into my skin like it's anchoring me to the chair. So what? I ask. You call the police? Say what exactly? My patient brought me proof her family lied 20-something years ago? They'll laugh you off the line. He shakes his head slowly. There's a protocol, he says. I document what you've shown me. I log it in the system. I notify the on-call crisis coordinator, and depending on their guidance, we may need to involve law enforcement or child protective services. There's a chain of custody for these documents. I can't just hand them back and pretend I never saw them. His eyes flick to the papers, then to my bag, then back to me. I need your consent to make copies, he adds. Scans. I don't want them to leave this room without a record. The idea of my grandmother's shoebox secrets living inside his encrypted portal makes my skin crawl. You locked the door before you said any of that, I say. That doesn't feel like consent. It's for confidentiality, he says quickly, and safety. If this touches anyone in this building or in your family who shouldn't know we're discussing it, I don't want them walking in on this conversation. He's trying to sound reassuring, but my brain is already running evacuation routes. 2 hinges on the door, 1 vent big enough for air, not for bodies, windows that don't open because we're on the 6th floor. Still, the coin's weight in my palm is the only thing that feels real. Heavier than the keycard clipped to his belt. Heavier than the pen he keeps setting down and picking back up. This was supposed to be about my anxiety, I whisper. You told me we were going to work on breathing exercises and grounding techniques, not, sometimes anxiety is your body telling the truth before the paperwork catches up, he says softly. He reaches for the office phone, the old beige landline next to the laptop, the one I've never seen him use. His fingers hover over the keypad. I'm going to call the on-call coordinator, he says. I'll tell them we have potential evidence of a historic records discrepancy and possible concealment of a sibling. They'll advise the next step. You can listen. You don't have to say anything yet. The white noise machine hisses. Footsteps pass in the hallway and fade. The little red light by the door glows steady. Somewhere in my chest, something that used to trust this room cracks. His fingertip presses the first number. The coin digs into my palm so hard it hurts, and I hold my breath, listening for the line to start ringing, wondering if I've just trapped myself in the only place anyone is finally willing to treat my family story, like a crime scene. The coin digs into my palm so hard it hurts, and I hold my breath, listening for the line to start ringing, wondering if I've just trapped myself in the only place anyone is finally willing to treat my family story like a crime scene. The phone is still silent. The white noise machine hisses. His finger hovers over the next number. Inside my own head, something rewinds with a rough, grinding sound, like an old tape dragged backward by hand. I am not in this office for a second. I am somewhere else. I am small enough that the crib bars feel huge, like a fence that goes all the way up to the ceiling. The room is dim, washed in blue from a cheap nightlight shaped like a moon. Dust dances in the sliver of hallway light under the door. The air smells like baby powder, warm milk, and the faint tang of the detergent my mother used, the one that made everything smell like fake flowers. Above me, a mobile turns lazily, little cloth stars and clouds, creaking on its plastic arm. I listen to its tiny click-click as it rotates. And across the room, over the soft shush of the vent, another mobile answers. Same click-click, same slow turn. I shift in my crib and grab the wooden rail with both hands, the world wobbling as I pull myself up. My diaper squishes, the sheet rustles, the mattress dips. My head barely clears the rail, but I see it. A second crib, a second mobile, a blurred shape that kicks under a pale blanket, a fist punching the air, a dark tuft of hair that looks like mine. Something in my chest stretches toward that shape like an invisible thread trying to connect. I make a sound, some baby half-word that feels like it means you. The heat from my body presses into the mattress and the wood. Back in my present palm, The brass coin is the same kind of warm, like it belongs wherever my other half is. Like it belongs. The door opens. Light from the hallway slices across the carpet, cutting our little world in two. My mother's silhouette fills the doorway, hair messy, robe belted tight. She moves to the other crib first. I hear the soft rustle of her touching the other baby. The low coo I will spend my whole life trying to get her to use on me the same way. Then she comes to mine. Her robe sleeve brushes my fingers as she lowers me back onto the mattress. Shh, she whispers. Go back to sleep, sweetheart. Her voice is thick, exhausted, like she's been crying or hasn't stopped crying since the hospital. I stare past her shoulder at the second crib until the door closes and the room goes dim again. Both mobiles spin, twin click-clicks in the dark. In the therapy office, the air conditioner hums above my head in the same steady rhythm, and I anchor myself by pressing the coin so hard into my palm, I can feel every ridge of its engraved edge. In my memory, the scene jumps. I blink, and the second crib is gone. The wall where it stood is bare, just a faint rectangle of flattened carpet where the legs used to sit. I am standing in the doorway now, older, tall enough to reach the light switch. Where's the other one? I ask. My father's voice booms from behind me before I can take another step into the room. What other one? His hand lands on my shoulder, heavy and hot through my t-shirt, steering me away, back toward the hallway. You had a dream, he says. You do that sometimes. I look back over my shoulder at the empty corner. Even the mobile is gone. Just my crib remains, pushed against the opposite wall, my own mobile still spinning lazily like nothing has changed. I didn't dream it, I insist, small and stubborn. There were two. He squeezes my shoulder hard enough that my eyes sting. Enough, he says. We're not doing the creepy twin thing at breakfast, okay? Your grandmother's coming over. I don't want you weirding her out. Breakfast. Grandma's Sunday dinner in miniature, even in the morning. The table that will someday host 8 adults and 2 kids already feels too big. I flash forward to one of those dinners, my arms longer, my hands steadier as I set the table. Plates, forks, cups. I move on autopilot, counting in my head like I'm running a checklist. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I put down 9 plates, 9 cups, 9 napkins folded into crooked triangles. The air smells like roast chicken, garlic, and the lemon oil Grandma uses on the wood furniture. The vent above the dining room coughs out a low, steady flow of air, blending with the distant sound of some football game on the living room TV. I hear it, under all of that. A second giggle, just behind mine, like an echo that lives in the vents. For a second, in the glass of the china cabinet, I see 2 of me, one face ducking behind the edge of the door as Dad walks in. He stops dead when he sees the table. There are 8 of us, he says, his jaw tightening. Why are there 9 settings? My hand drifts toward the extra plate like I can shield it somehow. I thought maybe... Stop feeding your imaginary friend, it's creepy, he snaps. His hand drops onto my shoulder, heavier than the last time, the weight of it pinning me in place. Grandma's silver bangles clink in the kitchen as she laughs at something on the radio, oblivious to the way his fingers dig into my skin. It's not imaginary, I mutter, but only loud enough for myself. He leans in close, his breath warm and sour with coffee. You keep this up, he says quietly, and we're taking you back to the doctor. You want more tests? More questions? You want them asking about that night again? The word doctor makes my stomach twist. My earliest real memory outside the nursery is a blur of red and blue lights strobing against the wall, paramedics in dark uniforms stepping over my toys in the living room, Dad shouting our address into a phone. 911. Say it slowly. Say it clearly. He drilled it into me after Mom got sick, made me repeat it like a spell. But whenever they talked about why the ambulance came that night, they never mentioned 2 cribs. They mentioned me, my episodes, my imaginary friend. At 6, I push open the door to my parents' bedroom without knocking and step into a storm. The curtains are half closed, lines of light stripe the carpet. Mom is sitting on the edge of the bed, a shoebox open beside her, photographs spilling out like someone cut them open and memories are bleeding everywhere. Her shoulders hitch with every breath. Her hands shake as she turns over picture after picture. I see baby versions of me, round cheeks, fuzzy hair, those same dark eyes. And then I see one that's wrong. 2 babies in matching hats, ink blue hospital blankets snug around them, faces almost identical, but not quite, some tiny difference in the tilt of a mouth or the crease in a brow. I reach for it. Who's? Dad's hand comes from nowhere, snatching the photo out of my fingers so fast the glossy paper bends with a sharp crack. That's enough, he barks. Mom flinches like he slapped her. The coin in my present palm flares with remembered heat. That day, my hand is empty, skin still soft where the brass will sit later. Give it back, I protest. I want to see. He ignores me. He scoops the rest of the photos into the box, slams the lid, and storms past me. I chase him all the way out to the backyard, the screen door slamming against its frame. The air outside is thick with summer, cut grass, and gasoline from the lawnmower. The metallic tang of lighter fluid. He flips open the grill, piles the photos in like trash, and flicks the igniter. A rush of heat blasts my face as flame catches the corner of the picture with the two babies. For a split second, their faces warp. Twin smiles stretched and curling, then blacken and disappear. Not everything needs to be kept, he says over the roar of the flame. Mom stands at the back door, one hand clutching the door frame like it's the only thing holding her up. Her other hand is closed around something small and bright. That night, while the house sleeps and the smell of burnt paper still lingers faint and bitter in the vents, she slips into my room. The hallway light makes a pale halo around her as she sits on the edge of my bed. She presses something cool and round into my palm. A coin, brass worn at the edges, a faint design in the middle so smoothed by thumbs it's almost gone. This is for when you feel like there's more of you than people let you be, she whispers. Her eyes are red, but there's a fierce little spark in them. Hold on to it, even if they tell you you're making things up. Years later, after she goes away for treatment and never really comes back, Dad will tell relatives that I invented a twin to cope, that the coin was just me clinging to her delusions. He says it in front of doctors, too, his voice practiced, patient, like he's the reasonable one. She feeds this imaginary sibling, he explains, while I sit on an exam table swinging my feet, the paper crinkling under me. We're trying to get her to separate fantasy from reality. The fluorescent lights buzz. The exam room smells like antiseptic and latex gloves. I roll the brass coin between my fingers, feeling every groove, every nick. Nobody asks why a child needs a totem just to believe her own memories. Back in the therapy office, the landline finally starts to ring. A steady, pulsing sound, each chime a step closer to someone who might file my life into an incident report instead of a bedtime story. I close my fingers around the coin and realize my whole childhood has been one long, failed attempt at a witness statement. Middle school slams back into focus like someone yanks a file from a drawer and drops it open on the table. The coin is small between my fingers now, but in my mind it's huge, a planet my whole life orbits. I am 11, then 12, then 13, always just a little too loud about things the adults say never happened. I sit at my homeroom desk, the smell of dry erase markers and cafeteria pizza clinging to my clothes, and tell a guidance counselor, I remember another child in our house. Her smile is polite and thin, the kind adults use when kids say they've seen ghosts. She writes something on her notepad, the ballpoint scratching fast. I crane my neck when she gets up to photocopy it, and for half a second I see the words before she flips the paper over. Fantasy-prone. Attention-seeking. Like those are diagnoses and not accusations. Later, there's a meeting in the school office. The vents rattle above us. A printer whirs in the corner. The secretary's phone rings twice and stops. The guidance counselor sits on one side of the table. My father sits on the other, his tie too tight, his smile just loose enough to seem charming. I just worry, she says, hands folded. The insistence on a twin. It could be an early sign of dissociation, or it could be a developmental phase. We'd like to refer her out for evaluation. Dad squeezes my knee under the table. Whatever's best, he says. We just want her to be healthy. He says it the same way he says grace at Grandma's dinner table, like he's performing for an audience and God at the same time. I want to say, I am healthy. I just remember things you don't like, but the coin in my pocket presses into my leg, reminding me what happens when I insist. The first time I see the word possible dissociation, it's by accident. I'm in a fluorescent bright hallway, the walls a tired blue, the air smelling like disinfectant and overcooked green beans from the cafeteria downstairs. Dad is at the reception desk, signing forms. The woman behind the glass window slides him a clipboard, rattles off a checklist in a bored voice. Consent for evaluation, emergency contact, permission to share records with the school, acknowledgement of security procedures. He signs everything without reading, his pen clicking as he flips each page. Where am I going? I ask. He doesn't answer. A door buzzes, then opens with a soft hydraulic sigh. A nurse in scrubs looks me over, eyes flicking to the brass coin I'm rolling between my fingers like a worry stone. I watch her tag on her chest bounce as she walks. Underneath her name is the word child psych. Inside the unit, the doors close with the same soft click I will hear again years later in my therapist's office. A magnetic lock engaging, a piece of hardware deciding I don't get to leave without a badge. Just for evaluation, Dad tells the admitting nurse. voice smooth. She keeps insisting we had twins. My wife can't handle it. I don't know what's real anymore. The nurse looks at me like I'm already a file. She straps a plastic ID band around my wrist, the material stiff and cold. Any self-harm, she asks? Of course not, Dad says quickly. She's just imaginative. He laughs a little on the last word. They write something on a form I don't see. They take my shoelaces, my backpack, the coin. No, I blurt, closing my hand around it. Please. The nurse hesitates. It's metal, she says. No metal in the ward. It's from her mother, Dad says, then adds for effect. Who's currently inpatient herself. Maybe this place can help my daughter avoid that pathway. The nurse looks at him, then at me, then at the coin. Okay, she says slowly. You keep it, but only in group, okay? No throwing. She winks like she's making a joke, but it lands wrong. The unit smells like bleach and crayons. TV murmurs from a common room. A kid down the hall cries in hiccuping bursts, like he's trying not to. At night, I lie in a narrow bed and listen to the doors. Each time a staff member comes in or out, there's that soft click, the beep of a badge reader, the tiny whoosh of negative pressure adjusting. I think of the crib that disappeared, the photograph that burned, the empty place at Grandma's table. Maybe she's right, I hear a voice say at the nurse's station one evening. About the memory thing. Not our problem, another voice answers. Our job is stabilizing her, not investigating her family. Stabilizing. Like I'm a wobbly table. The therapists here treat my memories like symptoms to be managed, not clues. In group, they ask us to draw our feelings. I draw 2 cribs, 2 shadowy shapes, 1 coin. The counselor tilts her head. Tell me about the empty crib, she says. It isn't empty, I say, and you just can't see her. She writes something in my chart. Later, I see the corner of that note when my file is open on her lap, and she forgets to angle it away. Reinforcement of twin delusion, it says. I want to snatch the paper and write in big letters, evidence, not delusion. Every session follows a pattern, a checklist they think I don't notice. They ask about sleep, appetite, school, friends, any new stories about a sibling. And then, like clockwork, Dad appears for the last 5 minutes, the door clicking behind him, his cologne cutting through the antiseptic smell. He sits in the corner, legs crossed, listening as the therapist summarizes my progress. She's starting to separate memory from imagination, they say. Less mention of the twin. He smiles at me like I've gotten the right answer. See, he says, told you the doctors would help. If I slip, if I say, but I remember. He leans forward, concern creasing his brow just enough. We've talked about this, he says. Remember our agreement? We focus on what's real. What's real becomes whatever doesn't make him uncomfortable. When Mom dies, the hospital room smells like stale coffee and those little alcohol pads they use before injections. Machines beep in slow, resigned patterns. Her hair is thin, her face smaller than it should be. I stand by the bed, fingers digging into the coin in my pocket, so hard it leaves a mark when I finally pull it out. I can sit with her, I tell the nurse. I know how to call 911. I know which button is for help. I list the steps like I'm reciting another emergency checklist, hoping competence earns me a little more time. She gives me a sad smile and adjusts Mom's oxygen instead. Dad stands in the doorway, arms crossed, a folded packet of discharge papers half crumpled in his hand. After the funeral, someone mentions grief counseling for me. A social worker with soft eyes and a clipboard. There are groups for teens, she says, and individual sessions. Losing a parent young is... She's already in too much therapy, Dad cuts in. His hand lands on my shoulder again, that familiar clamp. We don't want to over-pathologize normal sadness, right? He adds, using the fancy word like a shield. The social worker hesitates. It's not about pathologizing, she says gently. It's about support. We have family, he says. And just like that, it's decided. No new therapists. No fresh eyes on our history. That night, he calls me into his room. The house is too quiet. The fridge hums in the kitchen. The vents exhale cool air that smells faintly of dust and funeral flowers. He's at Mom's dresser, the top drawer open, her jewelry box gutted onto the bedspread. Bracelets, tangled necklaces, earrings missing their mates. He holds up the brass coin between thumb and forefinger, like he's appraising it. This is all you get, he says, dropping it into my palm. The metal is warm from his skin, but I feel cold all over. From her, I ask. From this, he answers. From whatever story you're still telling yourself about what happened when you were born. He closes my fingers around the coin. Inheritances come with responsibilities, he adds. Yours is to move on. No more twins. No more upsetting Grandma with your episodes. The word inherits a new meaning as it settles in my hand. It isn't just a keepsake. It's a gag order disguised as a gift. In the present, the landline on my therapist's table clicks as someone picks up on the other end. I hear his voice introduce himself, hear him say my name, hear the words old diagnosis and possible dissociation, and new information that may indicate prior mislabeling. He glances at me, then down at the coin in my fist, then at the photocopies on the table like he's seeing them all as part of the same chart for the first time. Before we proceed, he tells the coordinator, I need to flag a concern about how her history was documented. For the first time in years, someone treats my file like it might be the thing that's sick, not me. For the first time in years, someone treats my file like it might be the thing that's sick, not me. That thought knocks something loose in my chest, and the present blurs at the edges. The phone murmurs in my therapist's ear. The white noise machine hisses. The red light by the door glows steady. But in my mind, I'm standing somewhere else. I'm in my father's garage, months before this locked door session, breathing air that tastes like cardboard and old oil. The fluorescent strip lights overhead flicker every few seconds, buzzing in that tired way that makes you feel like your skull is a light fixture about to burn out. Dust hangs in the beams, drifting around towers of boxes marked with Mom's name in black marker. Go through what you want, Dad had said earlier, tossing me a pair of thin work gloves. We can't store her junk forever. Now he's inside, TV humming faintly through the wall, while I wade through his definition of junk. The gloves are too big, the fingertips fold over. The brass coin is bare against my palm anyway, warm and reassuring, as if it remembers this place from when I was small and watched him change the oil in the car. I peel open a box that smells like mildew and baby powder. Faded onesies, stiff with age, spill out. Yellow ducks, little blue stars, a stain that looks like time more than anything else. I lift a tiny knitted hat with my mother's careful label pinned inside. Coming home. My throat tightens. I'm moving a stack of folded blankets when a plain manila envelope slips out from the bottom and slides onto the concrete floor. It lands flat, then splits along one edge, its contents fanning out at my feet. Paper whispers against concrete. My heart gives a hard, stupid little leap, like it recognizes the sound before I do. I crouch down, knees popping, the concrete cold seeping through my jeans. The coin digs into my palm as I reach for the first sheet. Ultrasound pictures. Black and gray and ghostly, the same grainy haze I remember from the single-framed image Dad let me keep on my nightstand as a kid. Only these have more text. Baby A, Baby B. The white letters are unmistakable, stamped across the top of each frame. Two little shapes curve on the screen, curled like commas, heads dipping toward each other as if they're sharing a secret. I exhale so hard the dust lifts off the floor. My vision tunnels. It's one thing to remember two cribs. It's another to hold proof that someone else saw two too. They said she won't be safe with him, Mom's imagined voice whispers in my head before I've even found the actual words. I set the ultrasound prints aside with shaking fingers and pick up the next document. A discharge summary, hospital letterhead at the top. The ink slightly faded but still legible. This letter confirms discharge of patients. Not patient. Patients. Plural, in print, in language my father can't talk over. My emergency coordination brain clicks on by reflex, snapping details into an internal report. Hospital name, date, attending physician, file numbers. I could build a case out of this, I think. I could build a timeline. Something small and plastic taps against my wrist as I shift the papers. I look down. A hospital bracelet has slipped half out of the torn envelope, dangling from a loop of its own stiff, yellowed band. I pick it up carefully, the plastic crinkling under my fingers. My last name is printed clearly in block letters. The first name is not mine. It sits there, black on white, like a challenge to 20 years of gaslighting. I say it under my breath, testing how it feels in my mouth. My tongue recognizes the shape like it's been trying to remember it for a long time. My hand trembles. The coin shifts against my lifeline, anchoring me. Underneath the bracelet is a smaller scrap of paper, torn from a larger sheet, the edges jagged. I almost miss it. Mom's handwriting curls across it in familiar loops, the ink smudged in places like someone brushed a tear over it before it dried. They said she won't be safe with him. They said they'd come back, keep everything. The word everything is underlined twice, the pen digging deep enough to leave a faint groove in the paper. Keep everything. My chest tightens around the words. I sit back on my heels, the concrete biting into my knees, and let the envelope, the ultrasound, the bracelet, the note arrange themselves in a little crime scene tableau on the floor. This is more than family drama. This is paperwork. Paperwork is how systems admit something happened. For once, I'm not the only witness. I pull my phone out of my pocket, thumb slick against the screen, and start taking pictures. Each document gets framed, corner to corner. I make sure the dates and names are clear, that the scribbled underlines are visible. My inner emergency planner narrates a checklist in my head. Photograph evidence, secure originals, note location, maintain chain of custody. Chain of custody, in this case, means do not let my father get his hands on this until there are other eyes on it. I slide the papers carefully back into the manila envelope, then tuck the envelope into my own canvas tote instead of the baby clothes box. The coin is hot now, like it's absorbing the panic I'm trying not to show. I should wait, call a lawyer, call the hospital, call anyone but him. Instead, a few nights later, I pick the worst possible stage. Family dinner. Grandma's tiny dining room is overfull, chairs jammed so close our elbows keep knocking. The overhead light throws a yellow haze over everything. The air smells like overcooked meat, burnt onions, and cheap red wine. Condensation slides down mismatched glasses, pooling on the worn lace tablecloth. Cousins talk over each other. An uncle laughs too loud at his own joke. The vent above the window coughs lukewarm air that does nothing to thin the smell. The coin shifts in my pocket every time I move my leg. A small, weighted reminder of why I'm here. Dad sits at the head of the table, knife poised over a roast that should have come out 20 minutes earlier. His smile is big and bright for show. Say grace, Grandma orders, and he does, thanking God for family and food and the strength to move forward, like he didn't shove half our history into storage. When the plates start moving, I pull the manila envelope out of my bag and set it on the table between the salt shaker and the bowl of grayish green beans. The whole table doesn't go silent, but my side of it does. "What's that?" my aunt asks, fork halfway to her mouth. My fingers leave a faint grease print on the envelope where I've been clutching it too tight. "Mom's things," I say. "From the garage." Dad's shoulders go rigid. He doesn't look up, just saws through the roast like it personally offended him. "We can talk about sentimental stuff later," he says. "Eat while it's hot." "Some of it," I say, "isn't sentimental." I slip the ultrasound prints out and lay them on the tablecloth, the grainy images catching the light. Some of it is factual. The aunt closest to me inhales sharply. Her wine sloshes in her glass. Grandma squints. "What am I looking at?" she asks. "Me," I say, "and someone else." I tap the labels with my finger. "Baby A, baby B." Dad drops the knife. It hits the plate with a clatter that makes everyone flinch. He snatches the ultrasounds off the table so fast the edge of one catches and tears a little. "Old mistakes," he says, voice flat. "Misprints. They mix things up all the time." "Really?" I ask. "Because the discharge summary uses the word patience. And this?" I slide the hospital bracelet into the center of the table. The plastic knocks against a fork, has our last name and not my first. An aunt at the far end of the table, Wine Aunt, the one who always gets sentimental at holidays, lets her fork slip out of her hand. It hits the plate with a small startled chime. "Oh," she breathes. "The girls." She cuts herself off, cheeks flooding with color, but it's too late. The word hangs there, plural and dangerous. Dad shoots her a look so sharp it might as well be a knife. "What did you say?" I ask. My voice sounds wrong in my own ears, too calm. She busies herself with her napkin, fingers fumbling. "I misspoke," she says. "I meant the kids, all the kids." "We have one child," Dad says, eyes never leaving mine. "Just one." He picks up the torn ultrasound, folds it in half, like that will make it less real. "Your mother was confused after you were born," he adds. "She heard something, misunderstood, spun it into this. We've been over this." I pull out the scrap of paper with Mom's handwriting and flatten it on the table, right next to his plate so the gravy almost drips on it. "They said she won't be safe with him," I read. "They said they'd come back, keep everything." The ink is smudged where her hand pressed too hard. Dad's face goes oddly blank. "That's private," he says tightly. "She was sick. They were doctors. She thought they were out to get her." "Doctors don't say they'll come back and then leave a bracelet with a different first name," I say. "Social workers do. Caseworkers do. People who move children do." The table feels smaller and smaller. Everyone is very interested in their plates, their glasses, their phones. Nobody breathes too loud. My grandmother's fork stops halfway to her mouth and just stays there, hand trembling. Dad reaches for the envelope, for the discharge summary, for the note, trying to sweep it all back into his jurisdiction. I slap my hand down on the paper stack first. The coin between my palm and the note leaves a circular imprint. "Don't," I say. His jaw flexes. "These are old," he says. "They mean nothing now. Let it go." Mom's underlined everything stares up at me from the page, the ink groove catching the dining room light. "Keep everything." In the therapy office, months later, that same envelope sits on the coffee table between us, edges softer from being opened and closed. My therapist glances at it as he speaks into the phone, using words like historic records discrepancy and possible unlawful separation. He covers the receiver with his hand. Can you push the documents a little closer? He asks quietly. I want them in reach when I'm instructed what to do with them. We'll log exactly when they came into my custody. My fingers tighten around the envelope's edge. The coin is a hot circle in my palm, pressing Mom's last command into my skin. Keep everything. I slide the envelope forward until it touches his notepad, and for the first time, the evidence is on someone else's side of the table. I slide the envelope forward until it touches his notepad, and for the first time, the evidence is on someone else's side of the table. The edge of the manila catches on a ring of coffee on the wood, sticking for a second before it settles. The brass coin is a hot circle in my palm, like my mother's last word pressed into metal. Keep everything, and I realize I did more than keep it. I brought it here. To him. I picked him. I remember the first day I pushed open the same glass door months ago, before the lock clicks meant anything, just a soft chime over the downtown traffic. The lobby smelled like old carpet and new coffee. The AC vent hummed overhead, blowing air that tasted faintly of dust and whatever they used to clean the windows. The receptionist smiled at me from behind a screen, nails tapping the keyboard, the faint clack-clack-clack syncing up with my heartbeat. First time here? She asked. Yeah, I said, pretending it was casual, like I'd just Googled therapy near me and picked the closest one. I didn't tell her I'd cross-checked his license against the state registry at 2 a.m, or that I'd traced his name through 3 different provider directories, making sure it never appeared anywhere near my father's. Emergency coordination teaches you about redundancy. If one route is compromised, you find another. I sit in the waiting room, counting exits instead of breaths. Front door, stairwell door, a window that actually opens a crack. I clock the badge reader outside the staff area, the way the office hallway angles, the fire extinguisher by the elevator. The coin sits in my pocket, warm against my thigh. When he steps into the doorway and says my name for the first time, his voice is low and even. He's in a button-down shirt, rolled sleeves, a tie that's a little crooked like he adjusted it by touch, while reading something on his screen. Come on back, he says. His office is cooler than the lobby, AC pouring through a vent directly above his chair with a steady hiss. The windows behind him are cracked an inch open. I can hear the faint rush of traffic. A bus braking, someone laughing on the sidewalk below. It doesn't feel like the sealed boxes I've been locked in before. He gestures toward the couch. So what brings you in? General anxiety. That's the line I rehearsed. Keep it tidy, non-specific, something no one will question. I have anxiety, I say, like I'm handing him a form. Panic sometimes, work stress, family stuff. The coin presses into my palm. I don't add twin to the list. He nods, picks up a pen, and flips open a fresh pad of paper. As he goes through his intake checklist, sleep, appetite, medical history, I answer like I'm filling in blanks. No hospitalizations lately. No current meds. Yes, past therapy. When he asks what for, I say, they said it was dissociation. I don't tell him what I said. He doesn't flinch. Who said that? He asks instead. Pediatrician, psychiatrist, inpatient team? Inpatient, I say, surprised by how easily the word comes out. Child psych. He writes it down. No frown. No immediate sounds like dissociation speech. He looks up again. And what did you feel was happening? The question sits there between us, heavy. I could say I was just scared. That's what Dad likes. Sometimes I remember things other people don't, I say. From when I was very young. Okay, he says, like that's just another data point. Memories can be complicated. We can come back to them if you want. He doesn't press. He doesn't joke. He just leaves the door open, metaphorically, in a way that makes me clench my jaw and relax at the same time. Week after week, I come back. The AC vent hums steadily above us, my personal white noise machine. His mug leaves the same brown ring on the table every session, darker in some spots where he sets it down a little too hard while laughing at something unrelated. I start small. Contraband in thin strips. Once my dad burned a photo of me as a baby, I mention when we're supposedly talking about trust. He said it was an accident. He tilts his head. How old were you? 6. Do you know what was in the photo? 2 babies, I say casually like I'm talking about a painting. Matching hats. He pauses, pen hovering above the paper. 2? I shrug. Probably a cousin, I add quickly. I don't know. He doesn't correct me. He doesn't say, that sounds like symbolic fragmentation, which is what another therapist did. Lips curling like she'd caught me doing a trick. What hospital were you born in? He asks instead. Do you remember? I blink. Northern Memorial, I say. Why? Just curious, he says. Sometimes hospitals do those photo packages. Could be worth checking if your family has copies somewhere. Sometimes I mention the extra crib, like a side note in a story about nightmares. Sometimes I call it my imaginary friend to see if he smiles. He never does. When I say imaginary friend, his eyes don't light up with ready-made explanations. They narrow slightly, like he's trying to see the edges of the memory. And how old were you when that imaginary friend left? He asks once. I roll the coin under my thumb. The crib disappeared, I answer. Everyone else pretended it was never there. He writes that down too. It terrifies me. It also feels like oxygen. Do you have any paperwork? He asks one day, voice mild. Birth records, hospital stuff, anything like that. It's the first time a therapist has treated my memories like they might correspond to something someone typed out and filed in a cabinet. Not yet, I say. Not meaning never. Meaning I might. The day I come in with the envelope, the AC hums louder than usual. Or maybe that's just my pulse in my ears. I hold the manila folder in both hands like it's a live wire. The coin presses against the cardboard from inside my fist, the warmth soaking through. He notices it immediately. What do we have there? He asks. Evidence, I say, and my voice shakes on the last syllable. He sits forward in his chair, elbows on his knees. Can I see? I pass it over, my fingers reluctant to let go even as I push it toward him. The envelope leaves a faint trail and some dust on the coffee table. An accidental chain of custody mark. He opens it slowly, laying each item out with more care than my father ever gave our holiday china. Ultrasound pictures. Discharge summary. Bracelet. Mom's note. His face doesn't do what I expect. No exaggerated confusion. No, these must be hospital errors. Instead, a flicker crosses his expression, quick, almost hidden. Recognition, like some phrase in the discharge summary, matches a line he's seen before. He picks up the letter, squints at the header. What hospital did you say? He asks. Northern Memorial, I say. Same one I was told about. Same date that's on my birth certificate. He nods slowly, lips pressing together. Do you have your certificate with you? Not on me, I say. I can bring it. Please do, he says, if you're comfortable, for your chart. He adds that last part like he's softening it, but his eyes are doing some other math. Would it be all right if I make copies of these? He asks. For your chart, and to help you connect the dots. There it is again. Not help me cope. Help me connect. The coin is hot now, almost burning. Will my father ever see that chart? I ask. He shakes his head at once. Not without your written consent, he says. You're an adult. Your records here are yours. My chest loosens by a fraction. Okay, I say. You can copy them. He smiles a little, relieved. Thank you, he says. I'll scan them into our secure system after session. I want to make sure nothing happens to the originals while we work through this. He gathers the documents back into the envelope with a strange gentleness. Like he's picking up broken glass he doesn't want to break further. As he does, his thumb pauses on the discharge summary again, on a line near the bottom. His eyes flick up to me. There's that flash, recognition, alarm, something. Then it's gone. Is something wrong? I ask. Not with you, he says too quickly. We'll talk more next week. Now in the locked office, the envelope touching his notepad, I watch him on the phone, listening to whoever is on the other end. He glances at the ultrasound prints, at the bracelet, at Mom's note. His free hand hovers over the envelope like he's guarding it. Yes, he says into the receiver. I have the documents in front of me. No, they're not originals from the facility. They were in her mother's belongings. A pause. He looks at me. Do you have the case number? He asks the voice on the line. Because I think I've seen this hospital code connected to another file before. My skin goes cold, coin burning hot in my palm, as I realize this might not be the first time someone has asked about what happened to baby B. My skin goes cold, coin burning hot in my palm, as I realize this might not be the first time someone has asked about what happened to baby B. On the other end of the line, I hear the faint clatter of a keyboard, an intake worker's voice leaking through in muffled syllables. My therapist listens, eyes narrowed at the laptop, then says, Yes, I understand, and pulls the receiver away from his ear just long enough to look straight at me. His breath fogs a small patch of the window behind him. The AC vent hums steady overhead, pushing cool air that doesn't quite reach my face. I need to explain something, he says, and I need you to keep breathing while I do it. My fingers clench harder around the coin. That's not reassuring, I manage. He almost smiles, then doesn't. During my training, he says, I did a rotation with a hospital social work team. We reviewed historic files as part of a quality audit. One of them was a case from your birth hospital, twins, high-risk home, a welfare check that was marked unable to contact and then closed very quickly. The white noise machine in the corner hisses like it's reacting for me. I see the discharge summary on the table where he left it. The plural patients, sharp and black. You think that's my family, I say. I think what I'm looking at, he says quietly, tapping the envelope with 2 fingers. matches the kind of paperwork that shouldn't have disappeared. And when new information comes up in a case like that, especially when a child might have been illegally removed or confined, I become something very specific. A therapist, I say, though I already know the other word. A mandated reporter, he corrects. By law. I don't get to ignore this even if you begged me to. Heat surges under my skin, colliding with the cold. So what happens, I ask? You call 911 and tell them I'm crazy again? He shakes his head. This isn't a mental health crisis call, he says. It's a protective services report. Different script, different system. Script. Of course there's a script. In emergency coordination, we drill them. Location, nature of incident, hazards present, resources requested. He has his own version. He returns the phone to his ear. I'm ready to proceed with the report, he tells whoever is there. Yes, please open a new file and cross-reference it with the historic case number I gave you. The intake worker's voice is tinny, but sharper now, bleeding through the receiver. I catch fragments. Go ahead. Start with your roll, the clack of keys like distant hail. He takes a breath, the kind you take right before jumping into cold water. This is Dr. Aiden Clark, he says. Licensed psychologist, license number. He recites the digits without looking, muscle memory. I'm reporting newly disclosed information related to alleged unlawful imprisonment and possible falsified death record in a historic child welfare case involving twins. The words hit the room like a temperature drop. Alleged, unlawful, imprisonment, falsified. I feel each one land in my chest, stack up behind my ribs, rearranging my entire life into an incident report. He continues, voice steady, reading my story into a system that has never heard it from me. Reporter is treating the surviving twin, now an adult, he says. Client reports persistent early memories of a second infant in the home, corroborated by physical documents recently recovered from the deceased mother's belongings. Surviving twin. The coin almost slips from my grip. I curl my fingers tighter, the ridged edge cutting into my skin. The intake worker asks a question. He repeats it aloud for me as much as for his own notes. Is there reason to believe the missing child may still be alive or illegally confined? He looks at me. We both know he could guess, but he waits. My mouth is dry, tongue sticking to the roof. If she was dead, I whisper, why falsify anything? Why hide the paperwork? Why burn the photo? He nods once, slow. Reporter has reasonable concern that the child may have been concealed rather than deceased, he says into the phone. Family history includes controlling father, prior mental health mislabeling of the reporting twin, and an abruptly closed welfare check. Current risk unknown, but non-zero. The room shrinks. The walls don't move, but they feel closer. The red LED by the door glows a steady, watchful eye. I hear paper rustle on the other end of the line, more typing. The intake worker speaks in that flat professional cadence I know from my own trainings. They're building their own checklist. Current location, they ask? He replies with the clinic address, floor, suite number. Any immediate danger to the reporter from the alleged perpetrator? His gaze flicks from me to the door, to the tiny black panel he touched earlier, then back. Potentially, he says, the alleged perpetrator is the client's father. He has a documented history of weaponizing mental health services against her. He may be unaware she's changed providers, but if he learns about today's disclosure, there is a risk he will come to this office before police or CPS can make contact. That word, risk, lands differently when you've spent years putting it on other people's forms. For the first time, I'm not the one evaluating it. The intake worker says something that makes his shoulders tense. Understood, he answers. We already initiated our internal lockdown protocol for high-risk disclosures. Office door is secured. Something in my chest snaps at that. Lockdown. On me. I'm on my feet before I know I've moved, the couch cushions sighing behind my knees. The coin is a hot brand in my fist as I cross the few steps to the door. I grab the handle and twist. The latch doesn't budge. The metal is smooth and cool under my sweaty palm, utterly indifferent to my panic. I jiggle it harder, heart slamming against my ribs. The white noise machine keeps hissing like this is any other Thursday. Behind me, his chair scrapes. He moves fast and then deliberately slows as he approaches, one hand still on the phone, the other raised, palm out. I'm not keeping you prisoner, he says. I promise. Feels like it, I snap, not taking my hand off the handle. Open the door. I can't, he says, and the honesty in it almost makes me sink to the floor. Not yet. His voice into the phone shifts down a notch. Yes, she's understandably distressed, he tells the intake worker. No, she is not a danger to herself or others. The lock is for environmental safety, not containment. Environmental safety, a euphemism I've used in meetings when we talk about keeping staff from being cornered. Now I'm the one facing the corner. He takes a careful step closer, staying out of arm's reach. This is for your safety too, he says, eyes steady on mine. When we file reports like this, there's a non-zero risk that the alleged abuser shows up here first, to intimidate, to control the narrative. We've had it happen. That's why the suite can be secured from the inside. You think he's going to walk in here because I found an envelope? I ask. Because you stopped playing the role he wrote for you, he replies. His hand gestures toward the phone, the envelope, the glowing red light by the door, and because for the first time, someone is taking your version of events seriously enough to put it into a system he can't control. Silence falls for a breath. Just the AC hum, the faint rumble of traffic through the cracked window, the stupid little tick of the wall clock counting seconds I'll remember forever. On the line, the intake worker resumes their script. We'll classify this as an emergent historical case with potential ongoing risk, they say. Law enforcement will be looped in. Do not allow the reporter to leave unaccompanied until first contact officers arrive, or give alternate instructions. My ears ring. First contact officers. Not hypothetical, not someday. Today, right now. The therapist's pen scratches as he writes down the case number they read out, circling it on his pad. Thank you, he says into the receiver. Will remain on site. Yes, I'll stay with her. He hangs up. The click of the receiver settling into its cradle sounds louder than the lock engaging did. For a second, he just stands there, phone in one hand, the other hovering like he wants to offer it and doesn't know where to put it. Police, I ask, my voice barely more than air. And CPS, he says. They're coordinating. Someone from law enforcement will come here. They may want to take your statement, photograph the documents, start their own chain of custody. The phrase hits my training brain and my childhood brain at the same time. Chain of custody. For my life. Outside, through the cracked window, a siren starts wailing somewhere in the distance, rising and falling as it threads its way through downtown. There are always sirens. Today, for the first time, I can't tell if one of them is meant for me. Today, for the first time, I can't tell if one of them is meant for me. The siren swells, then fades, lost somewhere in the weave of downtown noise. Inside the office, it's just the white noise hiss, the hum of the AC vent, the faint tick of the wall clock, and my own breathing, too loud in my ears. The landline rings again. My therapist glances at the caller ID, then at me. Detective Line, he says. Can I put this on speaker, or would you rather I step out? The door's red light glows, a reminder that step out isn't on the menu. My fingers are welded around the coin, its ridged edge slick with sweat. Speaker, I say. If you're going to tell them my life, I want to hear it. He nods, hits a button, sets the receiver back in its cradle. A woman's voice fills the room, flattened a little by the speaker but brisk, alert. This is Detective Ramirez with Special Victims, she says. Am I speaking with Dr. Clark and the reporting party? Yes, my therapist answers. We're both here. Good, she says. First priority is safety. Is the reporter in a secure location, and is the alleged perpetrator aware a report has been filed? Secure location. The locked door at my back suddenly feels more like a bunker than a cage. She's in my office, he says. Door secured. To our knowledge, the alleged perpetrator does not yet know. Okay, she says. Ma'am, can you state your full name and date of birth for the record? My throat is dry, but my voice comes out clearer than I expect. I give her my name, my birthday, the hospital I've been repeating my whole life. Thank you, she says. I'm going to need you to walk me through what you told Dr. Clark. Start with your earliest memories that suggest there was a second child in the home. Take your time. He can fill in details from the documents. I glance at the envelope on the table, at the discharge summary and ultrasound prints fanned out like cards in a bad magic trick. The coin burns my palm. I start talking. 2 cribs, 2 mobiles, 2 babies in a photo my father burned. I recite the dates I've memorized. My birthday, Mom's admission, her discharge, the day the ambulance came. He supplies the chart details, hospital name, attending physician, the plural patients in the letter. Detective Ramirez keeps prompting, her voice calm and clinical. Who told you it was all in your head? My dad, I say. Then doctors he handpicked. They called it dissociation, an imaginary twin. And your mother? She gave me a coin, I say. She told me, this is for when you feel like there's more of you than people let you be. Then she went away for treatment and never fully came back. There's a pause on the line, keys tapping. Tell me about the envelope, she says. I describe the garage, the baby clothes, the manila spilling open like it couldn't hold the lie anymore. I read Mom's note out loud, each word scraping my throat. They said she won't be safe with him. They said they'd come back, keep everything. When I get to the bracelet, my last name with a stranger's first name, my voice shakes for the first time. The coin turns in my fist, catching on a callus near my thumb. Ramirez doesn't interrupt. When I finish, there's a short silence. Just the faint sound of her breathing and the distant murmur of whatever station she's calling from. Then her tone shifts into something even more formal. For the record, she says, we are classifying this as a historical child endangerment and possible unlawful confinement case, with the potentially ongoing victim status unknown. We will be requesting the original hospital file and any prior CPS records. My stomach drops. Unlawful confinement, I repeat. Alleged, she says. That's our word. Yours is what happened. You've done what you're supposed to do by reporting. Now I'm going to tell you what we need you to do next. Paper rustles. Do not return home tonight, she says. Do not contact your father directly. Do not alert him that law enforcement is involved. If he contacts you, don't engage. Document and save everything. He'll know something's wrong if I don't come back, I say. He's used to tracking me. He checked my therapy appointments when I was a kid. That old full-body shiver starts in my spine and runs out to my fingers, making the coin jump in my hand. Which is exactly why you're not going back, she says. We have 3 options for immediate safety: a domestic violence shelter, a hotel under a police voucher, or a relative you trust where he is unlikely to show up uninvited. Shelter, voucher, relative. Each word feels like a door in my mind. I picture the shelter trainings I've sat through for work, the way we talk about safe houses and confidentiality. I picture my father pounding on a hotel door, saying I'm having an episode. I picture my aunt at that cramped dinner table letting the girls slip out like a ghost. My maternal aunt, I say. The one who almost said something at dinner. She's always looked guilty. And he hates going to her house. She doesn't let him smoke inside. Ramirez makes a small, approving sound. Good, she says. If she's willing to have you and you feel physically safe there, that's my recommendation for tonight. I'll note it in the safety plan. Dr. Clark, can you document that and email it to me? Yes, he says. We'll write it down together before she leaves. She gives me a case number, makes me repeat it back, then adds, I will also be calling you from my direct line later tonight to check in and update you on next steps. Save that number. If your father shows up anywhere near you or this office, call 911 and then me. The coin is slick with sweat now. I wipe my palm on my jeans, then curl it back around the metal. Okay, I say. Last question for now, she adds. Does your aunt know about the twin? My mind flashes back to the clatter of her dropped fork. She knows something, I say. Maybe not what. Then tonight, Ramirez says, if you can do it safely, ask her on the record what she remembers. Put your phone on the table and hit record. Memory fades. Audio doesn't. My emergency coordination brain files that under actionable. Understood, I say. Good, she replies. We'll do our part from here. Do yours. We'll be in touch. The line clicks off. The office goes quiet again. Just the vent and the white noise hiss and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. My therapist scribbles the last of the safety plan on his pad, then turns the page so I can see. His handwriting is neat, bullet points marching down the sheet. 1. You will not return to your father's home. 2. You will go directly to your aunt's residence. 3. You will keep your phone on and charged. 4. You will not contact your father. If he contacts you, you will document only. Emergency plan, he says softly. Sound familiar? It does. It sounds like every drill I've ever run, except I'm the one being evacuated. He unlocks the door with a soft tap to the black panel. The red LED winks off. The latch gives under his hand with a small, normal click that makes my shoulders drop an inch. I'll walk you down, he says. I've already notified the front desk you're not to be given out to anyone who asks. The hallway smells like coffee and printer toner. By the time I hit the street, the siren I heard earlier is long gone, replaced by a bus braking at the corner and someone arguing into a headset. I call my aunt from the sidewalk, thumb shaking over the screen. Her ringtone is some old pop song, tinny through my speaker. She picks up on the third ring. Sweetheart, she says, everything okay? I need somewhere to stay, I say. Just for tonight, or some nights. She doesn't ask why. Of course, she says immediately. You know you don't have to ask. I'll put clean sheets on the couch. Do you need me to come get you? I'm okay to get there, I say. I'll explain when I arrive. Her little house smells like lavender and dish soap and something baking, even when nothing is. By the time I step inside, the sky is going lavender too, dusk sliding in around the edges of the neighborhood. She locks the door behind me with 2 deadbolts and the chain, a practiced little chorus of metal. You're freezing, she says, pressing a hand to my arm. Sit, I'll make tea. The kitchen is small, yellow light pooling over the table, the fridge humming steadily in the corner. I sit, set my phone face down on the table, the coin in my other hand. Steam curls from the kettle when it whistles. She pours chamomile into 2 mismatched mugs, the scent sweet and slightly bitter. Now, she says, sliding a mug toward me and sitting down. Tell me what that man has done now. I'm so tired of telling it, but this part is new. Detective called, I say. They opened a case. They told me not to go home. My voice breaks. I pull my phone toward me, open the voicemail Ramirez left while I was in transit. A recap, official and crisp. I hit play and set the phone between us, the speaker crackling slightly. Miss, the detective's voice says, using my name with that careful formality. This is Detective Ramirez following up. Your report has been logged. We have requested historic hospital and child welfare records. You are not to return to your father's residence. Please stay with your identified safe contact. Do not notify your father of this investigation. This is now an active case concerning the welfare of a missing twin, possibly subject to unlawful confinement. We will coordinate next steps with you tomorrow. My aunt's hands curl around her mug, knuckles whitening. Her face crumples like wet paper. They said we weren't supposed to say anything, she whispers. The words land between us heavy. I reach out slowly, tap my phone's screen, hit the little red circle I've hit 1,000 times at work when we test recording systems. A timer appears. 0 seconds. 1, 2. The coin anchors my other hand warm against my skin. Aunt Maggie, I say, keeping my voice as steady as I can. Say anything now. She stares at the steam rising from her mug, then looks at me, eyes wet. Yes, she says that there were twins. The room tilts. She keeps going. Yes, social workers came, she says. Yes, one baby was supposed to go to a therapeutic home, away from your father. Yes, he fixed it. She swallows hard. My phone's timer climbs. 30 seconds. 31. How? I ask. Her gaze flicks toward the ceiling, toward the hallway that leads to her spare room, toward a house that isn't the one I grew up in, but carries the same gravity of secrets. He told them one of you died, she whispers, and he kept the other where she couldn't be taken, upstairs. Behind that door no one but him had a key to. My grip tightens at the coin until it bites, and all I can see is a hallway from my childhood, a door I was never allowed to open, and the sudden, awful possibility that the sirens I heard today are finally heading to the right house. My grip tightens on the coin until it bites, and all I can see is a hallway from my childhood, a door I was never allowed to open, and the sudden, awful possibility that the sirens I heard today are finally heading to the right house. Now I am sitting at the back of an unmarked car down the block from that same house, watching it through a windshield smeared with streetlight. The night air is sharp even through the cracked window, damp grass and exhaust sneaking in, mixing with the stale coffee smell soaked into the car's upholstery. Ahead of us, red and blue reflections shiver over the hood as 2 patrol cars and a CPS van line the curb like an accusation. The coin is a small, hot sun in my fist, pressed so deep into my palm that when I open my hand, I know it will leave a red crescent. Detective Ramirez sits in the front passenger seat, radio on her shoulder crackling with clipped voices. Her laptop is open on the dash, the glow painting her face in weak blue. Breathe, she says without turning around. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 6. You teach drills. You know this. I do. My chest still feels like it's wearing a belt a notch too tight. But I match my breathing to the scratchy hiss of her radio. Across the street, my childhood home looks smaller than I remember. The porch light is on, throwing a yellow cone over the front steps and the overgrown azaleas. The upstairs windows are dark. That hallway door is somewhere behind them, wood and secrets and a lock only he ever touched. Ramirez keys her radio. Unit 1 is staged, she says. Reporter in the car with me. Proceed on my mark. A chorus of beeps answers her. Copy. Copy, standing by. The CPS van door slides open with a thunk. 2 social workers step out in plain jackets, their badges on lanyards, clipboards tucked under their arms. They confer with the patrol sergeant under the street lamp, the 3 of them forming a tight knot of authority. I catalog the positions automatically. Contact team at the front, cover officer watching the street, CPS ready to step in once the house is cleared. It's like watching one of my own emergency coordination diagrams come to life, except my house is the hazard bubble and my father is the unknown threat. Ramirez glances back at me. You can stay in the car, she says, or you can stand with me behind the tape. Your call. You don't go closer than I say. Understood? The idea of not seeing is worse than the idea of seeing. I'll stand with you, I say. She nods once, satisfied, and steps out. The night wraps around me as I follow, colder than it was a second ago. The grass on the verge is damp through my shoes. A roll of bright yellow tape appears from somewhere, unfurling with a plastic hiss as an officer strings it between 2 mailboxes. I stand just behind it, coin in my fist. The words do not cross vibrating slightly in the breeze. At the far end of the block, a neighbor's porch light clicks on. Curtains twitch. A door opens. People step out in slippers and housecoats, pretending to check their mail, their trash cans, anything that justifies being outside when the sky is strobing red and blue. On my front lawn, his front lawn, Dad appears in the doorway, a silhouette against the hallway light. Even from here, I can see the way his shoulders square, the way his hand grips the doorframe like he owns the air on both sides of it. The patrol sergeant calls out, voice clear and practiced. "Sir, we need you to step out onto the porch. We have a warrant to enter the premises." "You have no right," Dad shouts back, voice carrying easily down the block. "This is harassment. My daughter is sick. She makes things up. You people believe anything." Every word is a script I've heard before. Now there's a different audience. Ramirez's jaw tightens. "Knock and announce," she says into the radio. An officer steps up, raps hard on the open door frame anyway. "Police," he calls. "We have a warrant. Step aside." Dad doesn't move. He plants his feet, one hand still on the frame, the other slicing the air as he talks about lawyers and rights and my house. I can't see his eyes from here, but I know that look. The one that used to pin me to a chair in a therapist's office. Make my words shrivel on my tongue. He turns suddenly, jabbing a finger in our direction. "Did she tell you this?" he shouts. My crazy kid with her imaginary twin? For a second, every neighbor's gaze follows his pointing hand, lands on me. The coin pulses in my palm. Ramirez steps half in front of me, her body a quiet barrier. "That's enough," she calls. "Step away from the door, sir." From inside the house, another voice crackles over the radio clipped to the sergeant's vest. "Front team to command. Subject refusing to comply. Requesting authorization for forced entry to second floor interior door once cleared." The second floor interior door. They've seen it. Ramirez meets the sergeant's eyes across the lawn. "Authorized," she says. The word hangs in the air like a verdict. Everything speeds up and slows down at the same time. Two officers move onto the porch, flanking Dad. He jerks his arm away when one reaches for him, but the other already has his wrist in a firm grip, guiding him back, turning him, metal cuffs flashing in the porch light. The sound they make clicking closed around his wrists is softer than I expect. Smaller. He shouts something else, about rights, about this being a misunderstanding, but the words blur into the radio chatter and the distant murmur of neighbors. "Clear the first floor," the sergeant orders, "then get that upstairs lock." I can't see inside once they move past the doorway. The house swallows them, leaving only flickers of flashlight beams on the front windows. My teeth chatter, though I'm not cold. The coin is slick in my hand. I wipe it on my jeans and grip it again. Radio beeps mark each little update. Living room clear. Kitchen clear, back door secure. Ramirez stands beside me, her shoulders squared, every line of her body focused on the radio. Second floor hallway, a breathless voice reports. We have a locked interior door with external hardware. No visual on occupant, no verbal response. External hardware. The phrase makes something behind my eyes burn. I remember the way Dad used to brush past that door, keys jingling in his pocket, telling me it was just old storage, joking that there were ghosts in there when I was too little to know better. I remember trying the knob once and feeling it refuse me, solid and unmoving. Now, through the radio, I hear the clank of metal tools, the low murmur of officers coordinating. "Halligan ready, on your count." The battering tool hits the wood with a dull, deep thud that I feel more in my bones than in my ears. Once, twice. On the third blow, the voice on the radio grunts, "Breach," and the sound of splintering wood carries faintly through the open front door, ghosted by distance. The seconds after that stretch out, elastic and cruel. I stare at the dark upstairs window, at its warped reflection of red and blue. My palm hurts. I realize I've wrapped my fingers so tightly around the coin that my nails are digging into my own skin. There's rustling, footsteps over the radio, muffled shouts. Then a new voice cuts in, breathless and edged with something like awe. "Medic to command," an EMT says. "We've got a live female, early 20s, repeat, live, conscious, but weak. Signs of prolonged confinement and malnourishment." My knees almost buckle. Ramirez's hand is suddenly on my elbow, steadying me. The EMT keeps talking. "She's in a small room with no egress-covered window, minimal furnishings. She, looks like the reporting party, possible twin." The last two words crash into me harder than the battering ram hit the door. "Possible twin. Unit 2, bring the stretcher to the front," someone else calls. "We're coming down." I don't remember deciding to move. One second I'm behind the tape. The next I'm at the very edge of it. The plastic pressing against my stomach. Ramirez right beside me. "Stay behind the line," she warns, but her voice is softer now. The front door fills with movement. 2 officers back down the steps first, then an EMT, then the stretcher appears, lifted carefully, maneuvered around the old porch railing. On it, under a thin blanket, is a figure so slight the mattress barely dips. Her hair hangs in dull, uneven lengths around her face. Her skin looks like it hasn't seen sunlight in years, almost translucent under the harsh porch light. She squints against it, lids fluttering like she's trying to remember how to use her eyes at this brightness. My heart stutters. Her face is mine, or mine is hers. Same cheekbones, sharper on her. Same jawline, only more pronounced because there's nothing soft left on it. Same eyes, except hers are ringed in bruised shadows and wide with confusion and something fierce trying to ignite behind them. She turns her head, slow, like it weighs more than it should, scanning the small crowd that has formed at the edge of the lawn. Neighbors, uniforms, CPS, me. Her gaze snags on my hand first. The coin catches the porch light, a brief glint of brass. Her eyes lock onto it, then crawl up to my face. For a second, it feels like looking in a mirror someone left in a basement too long, warped, water damaged, but undeniably me. Her lips part. No sound comes out at first, just a dry exhale that frosts in the cool air. Then, hoarse and raw, she rasps a single syllable that makes the world tilt. Twin. The stretcher starts to move toward the waiting ambulance, wheels bumping over the uneven porch, and I stand frozen behind the tape, coin burning in my palm. Watching my other half roll out of the house I thought we'd already escaped from. The stretcher starts to move toward the waiting ambulance, wheels bumping over the uneven porch, and I stand frozen behind the tape, coin burning in my palm, watching my other half roll out of the house I thought we'd already escaped from. Weeks later, the house is gone. Now it's the courthouse that surrounds me, all marble and echoes an air that smells like old paper, floor polish, and too much cologne. I'm on the witness stand, right hand raised, the oath rolling out of my mouth in a voice that sounds more like a recording than something alive. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do, I say. The imprint of the brass coin ghosts my skin, even though it's not in my fist anymore. It sits in a clear evidence bag on the prosecution's table, tagged and labeled, a little white sticker marking it as Exhibit C. Chain of custody scribbles trail across the label. Detective Ramirez, property room intake, case number, and for once my life is the thing being handled correctly, step by documented step. The court reporter's keys chatter below me, steady as a heartbeat. The judge sits high on the bench, robe draped, face set in the kind of neutral that feels like a loaded chamber. Bailiff to the left, hand near the holster. Jury to my right, a row of strangers who now hold the power to believe me or not. Dad at the defense table, suit pressed, hands free for the moment, mouth a thin, angry line. My twin sits in the front row of the gallery, next to a victim advocate, a soft cardigan around her shoulders, and a hospital bracelet still on her wrist like a timestamp the world can't ignore. State your name for the record, the prosecutor says. I do. And your relationship to the defendant? I look at Dad. His eyes flick up, quick and sharp, the way they used to when a therapist asked me that question and he wanted to make sure I got it right. He's my father, I say, by biology and paperwork. My fingers twitch in my lap, feeling for a coin that isn't there. Tell us, the prosecutor says, voice even, how this started, not the night of the raid, before that, when you realized there was someone else. I swallow. The microphone picks up the sound and sends it out into the room, soft but undeniable. I talk about 2 cribs, 2 mobiles, a photo burned in a backyard grill while lighter fluid stung my nose. The prosecutor walks me through it like a checklist, hitting each point without letting me drift. When did you find the envelope? In the garage, I say, inside a box of my mother's things. There were ultrasound pictures labeled Baby A and Baby B, a discharge summary that used the word patients instead of patient, a hospital bracelet with our last name and not my first, and a note in my mom's handwriting. They said she won't be safe with him. They said they'd come back. Keep everything. Is that note in evidence? Yes, I say. He lifts a plastic sleeve from the table, the paper inside flattened and preserved. Your Honor, the state moves to admit Exhibit A, he says, the handwritten note recovered from the mother's belongings. Any objection? The judge asks. Dad's attorney stands, slick suit, slick hair, voice smooth. Subject to cross, Your Honor, he says. No objection to admissibility. So admitted, the judge says. The clerk takes the exhibit, the chain of custody baton passed one more step forward. After you found the envelope, the prosecutor continues, what did you do? I tell him about family dinner, about laying the ultrasounds on the table, about my aunt's fork slipping from her hand when she said the girls, About my father calling everything misprints and old mistakes and snatching the envelope like it was contraband. Did you contact law enforcement then? No, I say. I'd been told my whole life that if I insisted on another child, I'd end up back in the psych ward. I hear a small intake of breath from the jury box. The prosecutor nods, not pouncing, just letting it land. So what changed? I found a therapist who didn't laugh, I say. He treated my memories like data, not delusions. When I brought the envelope in, he recognized something in the paperwork and explained he was a mandated reporter. He made the call. The prosecutor glances at Dr. Clark, waiting behind counsel's table. We'll hear from Dr. Clark shortly, he says. For now, what happened after that call? I describe the locked office door, the detective's voice over the speaker, the safety plan, the unmarked car parked down the block from my childhood home. I talk about the battering ram hitting the upstairs door, the EMT's voice over the radio. Live female, malnourished, looks like the reporting party. How long did you believe you were an only child? He asks. 20-something years, I say. And in that time, how often were you told your memories were false? I almost laugh. Every time I brought them up, I answer. By my father, by some therapists he chose. They wrote possible dissociation and twin delusion in my chart. He nods, satisfied. No further questions at this time, Your Honor. Dad's lawyer stands, buttoning his jacket like he's about to give a TED Talk. He approaches the witness stand with an expression that tries to be gentle and ends up patronizing. Good morning, he says. You understand you're under oath? Yes, I say. And you understand that sometimes our memories, especially childhood memories, can be unreliable? I think of the discharge summary, the hospital bracelet, the girl in the front row whose face matches mine. I understand that sometimes adults lie, I say. A couple of jurors blink like they're trying to hide a smile. He clears his throat. Let's talk about your mental health history, he says. You were hospitalized as a child. For what? For what they said were episodes, I answer. For insisting there was another child. He flips through a folder theatrically. According to these records, he says, you were described as fantasy-prone, attention-seeking, and exhibiting twin delusions. Do you dispute that? I dispute the delusions part, I say. The fantasy was theirs. He frowns. Is it possible, he presses, that you constructed the idea of a twin as a coping mechanism for your mother's absence and your father's strictness? I look at the evidence table, at the ultrasound labeled Baby B, at the note that says keep everything, at the coin in its bag, Exhibit C, the ridges still faintly visible through the plastic. Is it possible, I reply, for an imaginary friend to be found behind a locked door by police and EMTs? Please just answer the question, he says. I did, I say. He exhales sharply, glances at the judge, then tries a different angle. Is it your testimony, he asks, that every therapist before Dr. Clark was wrong? No, I say. Some of them were doing the best they could with information my father filtered for them. That's why mandated reporting exists, to bring in systems he can't filter. His jaw works. No further questions, he says finally, like the words hurt. I step down from the witness stand on shaky legs, feeling the ghost of the coin in my palm with every heartbeat. Call your next witness, the judge says. The state calls Dr. Aiden Clark, the prosecutor replies. I sit at the front table now, close enough to see the faint stain on the prosecutor's tie, the nick on the wood rail where a lawyer probably slammed a binder too hard once. Dr. Clark raises his hand, swears in, sits. He talks about intake forms and timelines and how my stories stayed consistent across sessions. He explains mandated reporting like it's a fire alarm procedure. Who pulls it, who responds, how every step has to be recorded. He describes the internal lockdown protocol, the call to CPS, the chain of custody for the envelope, and the coin. The coin was in her hand when she disclosed, he says. She described it as the last thing her mother gave her related to the twin. With her consent, I logged it as physical evidence and transferred it to Detective Ramirez per policy. The prosecutor holds up the evidence bag. Is this the coin you're referring to? Yes, he says. The bag crinkles softly as it's passed to the clerk, then to the judge, then back to the table, each hand off another link in the chain. When my sister takes the stand, the room changes. She walks slowly, still thinner than she should be, but stronger than the night on the porch. Her hospital bracelet peeks out from under her sleeve, the plastic white against her wrist. She swears in, voice barely above a whisper at first. Then the prosecutor asks her name, and something solid settles in it. State your name for the record, he says. She says it. The name from the hospital bracelet in the envelope. The name that was never on my birth certificate. He asks her what she remembers. The upstairs room, the barred window painted shut, the bucket, the way Dad told her I had died, that I was too sick to stay, that he was protecting her from the world and the world from her. And did you believe him? The prosecutor asks. Her eyes flick to me. Until the night the door broke, she says. Until I saw someone outside who had my face. Dad's lawyer doesn't have much to say after that. He tries to suggest she's confused, traumatized, suggestible. But every time he reaches for doubt, the prosecutor reaches for another piece of paper. Hospital records corrected, welfare checks reopened, my aunt's recorded confession played through a small speaker that makes the whole courtroom lean in. When closing arguments end, the judge leans forward, fingers steepled. His gaze moves from my father to me to my sister and back again, as if he's tracing the lines of a map only he can see. Mr. Harding, he says, voice heavy. The state presents compelling evidence that you falsified medical records, manipulated welfare systems, and unlawfully confined your own child for years, all while pathologizing the twin you left outside as delusional for insisting she existed. Dad stares straight ahead, jaw clenched, like if he doesn't move, none of this will stick. What you stole here, the judge continues, was not just freedom of movement. It was identity, family, and reality itself. The words hang there, filling every corner of the room. Given the seriousness of these charges, he says, and the risk to the community, the court orders the defendant remanded without bail pending trial on counts of unlawful imprisonment, fraud, and child abuse. He nods to the bailiff. Take him into custody. The bailiff steps forward. There's a brief rustle of fabric, a shift of shoulders, and then the clink of handcuffs closing around my father's wrists. The sound is small in the grand room, but to me it's louder than any gavel, echoing off wood and marble and years of being told, bapond. I imagined every locked door. The sound is small in the grand room, but to me it's louder than any gavel, echoing off wood and marble and years of being told I imagined every locked door. Months later, different building, different echo. I sit on a stone bench outside a government complex that looks like a courthouse's quieter cousin. Concrete, glass, a flag snapping in the autumn wind. The air smells like wet leaves and exhaust and coffee from a cart parked near the steps. The sharp scent of dark roast cutting through the chill. Instead of a coin, I'm fidgeting with a laminated visitor badge clipped to my jacket. The plastic edge digs into my thumb as I flip it back and forth, watching it catch the gray daylight. Beside me, my sister sits with both hands wrapped around a paper cup, fingers still thinner than mine, but not as fragile as they were. Steam curls past her face, carrying the ghost of sugar and powdered creamer. You okay? I ask. She shrugs one shoulder, eyes on the glass doors where people in suits and sensible shoes flow in and out. I keep expecting someone to tell us we're in the wrong place, she says, that this is only for real people. You gave sworn testimony in a felony case, I remind her gently. You count as real people. She huffs a tiny laugh, the sound a little rusty but more natural than it used to be. Through the open chamber doors at the top of the stairs, voices drift out in waves, amplified by microphones, flattened by bad acoustics. A phrase reaches us whole, systemic failure. Another follows, mandatory audits of closed child protection files. Inside, a legislative committee is holding a hearing about reform. On the agenda, in a neat bullet point, is our case. Our family file turned training example, cautionary tale, blueprint for what not to let happen again. I can picture the room even from here. Raised dais nameplates, little red lights on microphones. Rows of chairs filled with staffers holding tablets. Advocates in pin-covered blazers. A few reporters tapping on laptops, as if they can type fast enough to catch everything before it slips away. I know the choreography. Government meetings are their own kind of drill. Badge at the front desk, sign-in sheet, agenda printed on thin paper that crinkles when you fold it. My name is on that sign-in sheet today, but not on the witness list. I chose that on purpose. I like it better out here, my sister says, as if reading my mind. Less eyes. She glances up at the sky, which is a low, solid gray, heavy with the threat of rain that may or may not actually fall. Her hospital bracelet is gone now. In its place is a simple woven band one of the trauma group facilitators gave everyone on their last day. She twists it absent-mindedly, mirroring the way I twist my badge. Inside, a microphone pops. Dr. Clark's voice floats through the open doors, a little thinner from distance, but still recognizable. In this case, he's saying, we had a surviving twin labeled delusional for remembering a sibling. When she finally produced documentation, mandated reporting did what it was designed to do. The issue is why those documents had nowhere to go 20 years ago. Paper shuffles. Another voice, someone on the committee probably, asks about staffing, backlogs. How many old cases can realistically be reviewed? As they talk, A gust of wind sends a swirl of leaves skittering across the pavement in front of us. The dry scrape a reminder that time is still moving. My sister nudges my knee with hers. "Do you ever feel like they're talking about someone else?" she asks. "Like some other pair of girls who lived that story?" "Sometimes," I admit. Then I look at her profile, at the familiar curve of cheekbone and the scar on her chin. She got from falling off a chair the first week in the rehab unit. At the way her eyes track every passerby and then consciously relax when they're just staff, not threats. "But I also remember the sound of that door breaking," I add, "and your face in the porch light." I don't remember anyone else's face like that. She takes a sip of coffee, winces at the heat, then smiles like she's determined to like it anyway. We've been rebuilding in strange overlapping layers. Shared counseling sessions where we sit side by side and puzzle through what parts of our stories match. Late night takeout at my small apartment, cartons of noodles sweating on the coffee table while some old sitcom murmurs on the TV mostly for background noise. Walks through noisy parks where she flinches at the sudden bark of a dog or the screech of a skateboard, then slowly unclenches when nothing bad follows. We trade details like puzzle pieces. She didn't know I drew 2 cribs in group therapy as a kid. I didn't know she used to press her ear to the floor of that locked room to listen for footsteps that sounded like mine. We keep discovering eerie symmetry. We both tap rhythms against flat surfaces when we're anxious. We both hate closed blinds during the day. We both count exits without thinking, even though she learned it as survival and I learned it for work. At first, every similarity feels like a test I'm about to fail. Now, more days than not, it feels like shared DNA finally getting to do something other than haunt us. A burst of applause ripples out from the chamber doors, polite and brief. Then Detective Ramirez's voice takes over the mic, clear and clipped. "In this jurisdiction," she says, "we're rolling out a protocol to cross-check historic death records and child cases against hospital and welfare logs. No more one-signature closures. No more unable to locate without GPS and IT logs to back it up." GPS, logs, words I know intimately from my job, now aimed at a system that once let my father make me the unreliable narrator of my own life. My sister leans her shoulder against mine. "Do you want to go in?" she asks. "Hear them say your name into the record?" "Do you?" I counter. She thinks about it, then shakes her head. "Later, maybe," she says. "Right now, I just want to sit here and smell leaves and coffee and not bleach." "Fair," I say. I flip my visitor badge over again. On the back, in small print, there's a line about returning it to the front desk before leaving the building. Check in, check out, track who was here. Some systems learn. Our therapist emerges from the building a little while later, suit jacket unbuttoned, tie slightly askew in a way that screams panel over. He spots us on the bench and lifts a hand. "All done?" I ask when he reaches us. "For today," he says. "They have homework now." He gives my sister a warm nod. "They asked about you," he tells her. "Not your medical details, your rights, your future." She looks startled, then suspicious, then quietly pleased. After he leaves, the crowd thins. Staffers spill down the steps, phones out, already onto the next crisis. The coffee cart starts packing up, the clink of metal canisters and the thump of stacking cups marking the end of business. "Walk back to your place?" my sister asks. "Yeah," I say. "We can cut through the park." We stand. My visitor badge bounces against my chest on its clip, a small, annoying weight I'm already used to. We're halfway down the steps when she stops short. "Wait," she says. "I almost forgot." She digs into the pocket of her jacket, fingers fumbling for a second, then closing around something small. She pulls it out. The brass coin gleams in her palm, dulled and bright at the same time. It looks heavier than it did in the evidence bag, like every hand that's held it since. Mine, my mother's, my father's, the detective's, the property clerk's, has pressed another layer of meaning into the metal. "How did you—" I start. "Property room release," she says with a little flash of pride. "They said it was up to us which one signed for it. I told them it belonged to both of us." She steps closer, closing the distance that used to be barred by wood and a lock and a lie. She takes my hand and turns it palm up. The afternoon light is thin and cold, but her fingers are warm. She sets the coin in the space between our hands and cups hers over mine, so that for a moment it sits there, held by both of us. "You carried this for both of us," she says, "in your head and in your pocket, and into every room where no one believed you. I think it belongs to us now, not to him." The metal is familiar and new all at once, warmed by her skin as much as mine. I close my fingers slowly, feeling the ridged edge press into both of our palms at once. For the first time, it doesn't feel like a question or a warning or a weight I have to prove. It feels like a shared key to a door that's already off its hinges. Some secrets can be locked away for years, but the moment they're dragged into the light, they belong more to the ones who remember them than to the one who tried to make them disappear.